Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Seeing Ability podcast, where we're having a conversation about the world of people with disabilities. And we're going to be talking to a lot of different folks. That includes adults who grew up as that kid with a disability, parents who are raising children with a disability, and a lot of people that support that community. So that could be folks in healthcare, folks in education, and folks in nonprofit. Now, I'm really excited because this is one of my nonprofit showcase episodes, and I've got a great group of ladies here with me today from BCA. You're going to hear more about their work later. Ladies, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So as my listeners know, we always like to start off with something where we're talking about the world of persons with disabilities, but we're all just people. And so we want to kind of get to know you ladies a little bit, asking you what I like to call the Fast Four. Now, the Fast Four is brought to you by our good friends at Reliable Tech Help. So for your tech needs, they're at 502-797-7344. Number one on the Fast Four, I'll start with Kristen, is what is your favorite food?
Oh, easy. Tacos.
Tacos. Okay. Margaret, how about you?
Ice cream.
Cassandra?
Chocolate. It's like its own group.
Is it just me or is this podcast making me hungry? I'm not sure. Okay. Number two, favorite music. Kristen?
Well, I call it yacht rock, but my kids call it old people music.
Okay. There you go. It's the eye of the beholder. Margaret?
I would say country through and through.
Sandra?
I would also agree with country, except if you're looking at my list, then I'm watching crime. I'm listening to crime podcasts.
Okay, crime podcast. Very good. All right, we'll stick with you, Cassandra, and we'll go back around the horn. What is your favorite summer fun activity?
In the pool with Legend.
Okay, Margaret?
Same, in the sun, in the pool, as much as we
Okay.
can.
Yep. And I have to chime in with the same as anything in the sunshine.
Okay, very good. This is a sunshine pool kind of group. I like it. I like
We
it.
like our vitamin D.
Okay, and we'll stick with you, Kristen. If you could bring back a historical figure to have dinner with, who would it be?
Well, you threw me off with the historical part because I forgot that you said that. But I was going with bringing someone back. I was going to go along with our music theme and say Michael Jackson.
Oh, I like that. Michael Jackson. Very good. Margaret, how about you?
That's a tough one. If I were being historical, I'm going to go with the Apostle Paul. I have a lot of questions.
You have a lot of questions. Very good. Cassandra, how about you?
She stole my answer, only I would have said Jesus because I have a lot of questions.
That doesn't surprise me, knowing you, Cassandra. Okay, well, great. Thank you, ladies, for doing that. So there's a lot of different topics to talk about as we travel this world of people with disabilities. But for most people, the journey starts with acceptance. You know, very few parents go into it knowing they're going to have a child who has some kind of difference in the world. And so maybe I'll start with you, Cassandra, about your maybe I'll start with Kristen. And we haven't really introduced you ladies in terms of each of your roles and how you contribute to the BCA family. So Kristen, you want to tell us who you brought as the executive director? First of all, welcome. Yep. Tell us who you brought with you today.
Yeah, so I'm Kristen, but I brought with me Margaret Howard, who is a behavior analyst and currently a program coordinator for us and our clinical intake manager. So Margaret is really the first person that our families meet when they come through our doors. So that she will have a lot of great things to say. And then Cassandra Boyles is a parent / Tia of one of our fun clients that we have, and I know we'll have a great perspective on managing family life with child with disabilities.
And we're going to get into more depth later in the podcast, but just as by way of introduction, tell the folks who don't know anything about what does BCA stand for. What kind of work do you guys do?
Yeah, Bluegrass Center for Autism is a nonprofit in Louisville, Kentucky, and we serve children and young adults on the autism spectrum, ages 2. Our oldest is 30 right now. We have several different programs that revolve around intensive services to community support, to school support, and most importantly, in all of our programs, supporting our families through their journey.
Fantastic. Okay, well, that gives our listeners a good framework for the perspective you guys bring to the conversation. So let's start with acceptance. Cassandra, I always like to ask folks 2 questions. One is, what was your journey in this first part, acceptance, like? And out of that journey, what advice would you give today? You probably get asked from new parents to move through that stage.
our journey, thank you for asking. Our journey was a little bit unique as we are not Legend's biological parents. However, he came into our life when he was about 3 days old, and we currently have custody of him now. So he is with us 24/7. And it was interesting as my kids right now are 35 and 22. So it was quite different. You know, we had to go out and seek out the information and try to find people who could lead us along our journey. So we have been very, very blessed in that a daycare owner originally recognized that Legend had a sensory processing disorder. She suspected autism, but did not want to say that. She led us to First Steps. First Steps led us to Carriage House after he aged out of First Steps. Upon aging out of Carriage House, we were led to BCA, and we have been so, so, so blessed. And I know that that's not everybody's experience, but we were welcomed with open arms, and they did offer a community program originally, so he got to go part-time. He got to have those resources in-house, and it was just for us through Carriage House and BCA amazing to have a place where we felt like we could leave our child and know that he was safe, he was understood, he would be protected, and he would be with people who could help teach us how to best guide him.
Yeah, absolutely. What a feeling to know that you could count on that.
Yes.
Thank you. So Margaret, you are see a lot of parents near the beginning of their journey, and they're probably right in the storm of having a diagnosis and realizing life's not going to be exactly what they thought it was going to be. What are your observations on what parents can do to kind of work in and move through that first part of the journey?
So that's a great question. We see parents, very overwhelmed parents a lot of times. So having just come in and take a deep breath and understanding that if you don't have the resources at home or you don't know what you're doing, getting help outside is one of the best things that you can do. I think parents get overwhelmed with, I wish I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. You can't do everything. That's why you have people who can help you know what you need to do and prioritize. It's overwhelming when you look at this diagnosis. It's like, where do we begin? And everybody's priority is different. So I think for us, it's helpful to be like, here's what's important. Here's where they're at. Here's what's important. Here's what we're going to start with. Here's what's going to make the biggest impact immediately. And then sort out the rest of the issues or things that you want to target.
A real common thing for parents in the beginning is thinking a lot about and maybe going down a rabbit hole of worry about the future. What's this going to mean for my kid? And, looking so far ahead. What have you seen and what advice would you give for parents? And the other thing, part of it is looking too far in the future, kind of that worry, that angst. And the other thing is just a range of emotions. And even another emotion of like feeling guilty for having emotions. So talk to us a little, Kristen or Margaret, either one, about helping parents on that piece of like the looking into the future and the emotional part of just knowing your path's going to be different.
Yeah. I think it's difficult to say that you don't want them to look into the future, but you don't want them to focus so much on the future that they forget about what's happening in the moment. And sometimes it's really important in talking about, meeting their own needs so that they can better help their children, right? That's also really important. Yep. And there's 1,000 different ways that people can navigate these situations, right? And not the one way that's right for one family is not always the same that's right for another family. And so knowing what's important to your family and important to you about, what your child learns, what skill sets they acquire first, and having a treatment team that will listen to you is really important. So making sure that the people that are on your team, all the professionals, are working with each other and also working with you to navigate the life that you want your family to have, not the life that somebody in some book wrote or whatever, that it's achieving your own personal goals.
I love that. So Margaret, what about you? That idea of the worry and then dealing, you probably hear a lot of people kind of like coming into your office and sharing a lot of emotions they're feeling?
Yeah, I think that we talk a lot about, or over the years, we've talked a lot about, like, there is a grieving process, and that is okay, because you're grieving a life that you thought you were going to have. You know, the encouragement that we give to parents is you can't get stuck in that grief. You've got to grieve it, and then we've got to have a plan, and you've got to move forward. And so I think that validating those feelings and telling parents it is okay to feel that way. I mean, it especially if you have one child, that's overwhelming. But if you have more than one child, that's even more overwhelming. And so I think just validating how they feel and it being okay. You know, I think sometimes we get into, this is what you got to do, this is what you got to do, this is what you got to do. But part of the healthy growth process is experiencing those emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. Validating it and not feeling bad about having emotions in the first place. Kristen,
Absolutely.
you mentioned a team that listens to you and really works in coordination. Cassandra, I wanted to ask you, because invariably parents are going to interact with the medical community, with providers, with lots of different people. Talk to us about how a parent navigates kind of finding their voice, if you will, in the world of medical.
I would kind of mirror a little bit of what Kristen said, in that, don't look so far into the future. I think that's everybody's knee-jerk reaction when they first get a diagnosis. They start assessing, what can we do? What can we not do? And Margaret is really good about reassuring the parents themselves that if you don't get caught up in that, it's like a building block, and we just have to have a little bit more patience. And, when it comes to dealing with the medical community, especially when you have a child that is nonverbal and cannot speak for themselves, like, let's say you go to the pediatrician, where does it hurt? They can't really tell, but they will look to you and to be their advocate. So you have to be their voice. So if I could say anything to parents, I would say, find your voice and use it. And your kids need it, and it will get better. The further you get along in this journey, it will get better, because you will get better at it. You will get better at advocating and speaking up. You will get better at knowing their cues, and they will get better at building their own skills. So I think it's okay.
I love that. And what would you say about, I think sometimes people are afraid to ask questions. Sometimes in the medical world, people speak in ways that like don't quite make sense, and finding your voice, being able to ask those questions, maybe even trust your gut. Talk to us about that a little bit, Cassandra.
One of the first things that I did, like I said before to other people, that I have joined Facebook groups, like the Laughing Duck, and I have spoken with other families like that I've met through Barron Heights, where I begin to see other people's struggles, and I know that some of them are the same. And so I will talk to other parents. And so a little bit of it is going to be coming out of your own shell. For those who are in a shell, I'm not one of those, but for those people, you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone, and you're going to have to share that journey with other people, because I promise you, those other parents want that connection too. So many times, so many families struggle within their own family, being ostracized because their child acts differently. And other family members don't really know how to handle that. And so they don't intentionally do it, but your kid will get kind of pushed to the side a little, whether it's at a playground or a party somewhere or something, because they are different. And you have to not take that personally, and you have to look to your kids and know what they can handle. And then you get to help give them the most of every experience that they can enjoy. And then you can relax and enjoy it as well.
I love that. I love that. Okay, that's a good segue to a couple topics, but first we're going to take a real quick break. When you have a kid who is different, all your ducks need to be in a row, especially your money. Cam Howell with Primerica knows the joys and the challenges as he and his wife raise their medically fragile son, Brooks. Cam brings over 13 years of experience to help his clients be protected, have a plan for the future, reduce debt, and connect to resources. Get your financial house in order so that you can enjoy every moment with your child. Reach out today at 502-803-5075. And now back to the show. All right, we talked a little bit about building the village and that connection to other parents, but first I want to move up the agenda, a subject that always gets pushed down the agenda, which is that old put your oxygen mask on first, self-care. I'll start with Kristen and Margaret. You've been around a lot of families for a lot of years. There's this all hands on deck, fight or flight reaction of like all resources are dedicated to helping the kid. And sometimes the parents forget to take care of themselves. So what have you observed, learned, and what advice would you give for parents to make sure that's even on their radar, and how do they do it? Because they're like, how do I take care of myself? My kid needs me.
Well, I think I'll speak for Margaret and I both a little bit when I say this, because we talk about this topic a lot. And we've both been doing this for a little over 20 years. And to tell you that some of our advice to parents would be that everyone's first response is knee jerk and fight or flight, and that's okay. And like Margaret said, like there's a grieving process and things like that. But then you need to wrap your head around that if you let the child with the disability dictate your entire life, then it's not going to be good for anyone in your family, right? It's not going to be good for your child that needs the extra help. It's not going to be good for other children. It's not going to be good for your personal relationships, both inside and outside your family. And so I think really encouraging families to find a support system, and sometimes that may be way outside the walls of autism or whatever disability you're facing, and sometimes it might be in an inner circle. I know that oftentimes we'll definitely refer families to like places like Feed a Wolf, right, because they are a unbiased support group for families that support lots of different avenues and things like that. But I think my initial reaction would just be to encourage them to, yes, this changes the trajectory of your family's life a little bit, but it shouldn't be the dictator of the ship, right? Like it should be it's just part of the journey.
Yeah. Margaret, how about you? It's self-care.
Yeah, to piggyback kind of off of what Kristen said, I think a lot of times when what we see with families is that like it becomes everything. And so what we always tell parents, or what I always tell parents, is like the expectation should always be there, whatever that expectation is for your family. But how you get from point A to point B may look different. But I think that that's one of those things that you have to encourage parents is like, don't lose what your mission is for your family. Don't lose what your goal is and what you want to accomplish. You just need to, it just may look different on how you get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Cassandra, anything to add on taking care of yourself?
Well, I can say that I have talked to many parents, as well. And one thing that maybe doesn't get enough attention is that a lot of marriages do suffer under the weight of a diagnosis, and it can happen quickly. So all I can say is, as soon as you get a plan in place for your child, you need to make one for your spouse and yourself as well. And I would also say take the time to get outside of the house with some old and some new friends. I know that Southeast Christian Church has a Shine program that welcomes the special needs community to. They have people, a safe place for you to leave your child, and then you can go in there. There are Bible studies. Like I said, there's a Miracle League Park. There are all of these places that you can go with people and your child that you don't have to be so stressed and worried. And so going, like I said, with old and new friends and being with people your own age, not just children, will help remind you that you're a person too. And, recognize that when places like Barron Heights offer a mom's day out or a dad's day out, those aren't meant for other people. They're meant for you. Recognize that you are walking this path and you could use that mani-pedi, chair massage, a movie out, or whatever it is they want to offer. And don't feel like you're taking a charity, because this is actually a support system that lives to serve the special needs community and their families. And it does everybody's heart good to just go do that. So, sometimes it's as easy as taking a few minutes to meditate and, just take some time to yourself and be in those feelings. And as Margaret said, you got to move past that and you got to say, what's next?
That's so valid. And the idea that, self-care is not selfish, right?
Exactly.
You
I
have
would
to,
absolutely agree with that.
if your primary goal is to be there for your kid, part of
Mhm.
that, part of how you be there is taking care of you. So I
Yes.
love that.
Absolutely.
It's a good segue to this. We hear a lot about, you guys have mentioned lots of different resources, things to connect to, programs that are there to serve the community. Margaret, you deal with a lot of folks in the very beginning, and a lot of times people are lost. So one of the things is, what advice would you give for parents? It could be parents of kids with autism, kids with any challenge, on how do they go about building that village?
Reaching out, I think, is like a big thing. I think one of the things that we actually, Kristen and I did a training not too long ago, and one of the things we talked about is how quickly I think parents self-isolate because they're overwhelmed by their child's behavior or just trying to navigate day to day. And then all of a sudden, you take what village you have and they're gone. So reaching out, finding those people around you that you trust and that and then understand, your situation, and really leaning into those people and saying that you need help. I had a mom a couple of weeks ago that came in, and she has an older child who's 11, and they were doing fine. They had been doing fine for 10 years. He was in school. He was great. And he started to struggle, and she's crying, and she's like, I've never needed help before. And I stopped her and I said, you don't have to justify why you're here for help. What you're doing is you're doing the right thing. You need help and you're seeking it out. And so I think that is a huge thing, is that for whatever part in your journey you need help, maybe you don't need help when they're little, you've got this, but as they get older, you need the help. That's okay. And you don't have to justify that to anyone at all.
Yeah, I love that. Kristen, anything to add on building that village?
No, I think I would just reiterate that never being afraid to ask for help, right? Which is hard for all of us, right? But never being afraid to ask for help, and recognizing too that at different phases and different stages of your journey, just like we all do as parents, whether you're raising neurotypical children or not, that like you need different things at different times. And and sometimes you might be, sometimes as a mom, you might be the strong person, and sometimes the next day you don't have it in you and you have to ask other people to help you out. And I think that just making sure that you build some kind of network, however you find it, that you make sure that you have people in your corner. And I think that's most important.
Cassandra, you had to figure this out on your own, building your village. What are your takeaways? What did you kind of have to learn the hard way?
I had to take time to kind of process through it a little bit. Obviously, as we've all said, you grieve. As that first year is probably one of the hardest, because as you approach and pass through every holiday, you realize that it's not going to be the same. You can't Christmas or Easter, you can't really explain Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and all of these things. And an autistic child or any special needs child might be a little more frightened or intimidated in those situations, or have sensory issues. And so that's difficult. The next thing that I kind of recognized was going to a playground isn't just going to a playground. Other kids, want to run up and say, hey, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? Why ain't he talking? You get all of this stuff. And as you advocate for your child and you try to explain that he's autistic, and then you hear a parent from the back say, leave the little boy alone because you don't want to bother him. And so you begin to kind of pick up your sword and want to fight for these kids and be further an advocate for autism, and just try to get other people in the community to understand what they can and can't do with the special needs kids, so that they can find acceptance and then take that down the road, and maybe the next autistic kid that they meet, it'll go better. So I would, kind of to Kristen and Margaret's point, sometimes when you run into, as the parent, so many of those roadblocks, that's how you self-isolate, because you think, I don't want to put my child through that, when quite frankly, everyone would agree, Legend is an equal opportunity ignorer. He does not care.
Yes.
I'm the one feeling the feelings. I'm the one who is disappointed for him. I'm hurt for him. And so what I would say to parents again about reaching out is that if you need to talk to somebody about those feelings, or you need to find others to bounce that off of that understand, then you again have to come out of your shell and be willing to do that. It's the only way that you are going to be in the best possible mindset, frame of mind, to be the best person you can for your child.
Well, speaking of being an advocate for kids and being kind of a warrior for autism, it's a good segue to what you guys do at BCA. So, Kristen, we started off with a little bit of overview, but tell us a little bit more, or Margaret, either one, about some of your programs, and also, like right now, what are some of your biggest needs in the community?
Yeah, well, that's a long-winded answer, right? So at Bluegrass Center for Autism, like I said, we provide several different levels of care in terms of services and age groups and in phases of life, like we talked about. But all of our teaching and therapies are based on the principles of applied behavior analysis, and then we incorporate speech therapy. And a little bit about what individualized services, it's really about what the client needs. It's not, we provide services based on client and individual family needs, not based on what we think is great. We make opportunities available, but usually we can design our services around what an individual and a family needs. And right now we are in the process of launching a $10 million campaign, because we have found that even as great as services that we think we currently provide, we have met a roadblock where there are additional levels of services. There are enhancements to our programs that we are unable to provide at this time due to many reasons, due to lack of physical space, due to a lack of just different design services for some of the programs. So through our $10 million campaign over the next 3 to 5 years, we hope to be able to open spaces specifically geared towards adults, those over the age of 18, because there's a severe lack of services for them in the community, and focus on social skills and recreational skills and vocational skills and things like that, and then really be able to separate our age groups. What we have found is that age groups, just like we've talked about several times throughout this podcast, that different phases of life need different things, and being able to design an environment and be able to design your treatment team to be able to focus on those specific needs of every stage of life is really helpful. So, just being able to grow our program both by physical location, but also by program enhancement, is our goal through that. So hopefully we can impact more of the community. Currently the rates of autism are 1 in 36, and even just a short, 20 some odd years ago when Margaret and I first got into this field, the rates were 1 in 150. So you can think about the drastic increase in need for services. And it is always Bluegrass Center for Autism's mission, to impact the community in the biggest way that we can. And so, that's really where we are in trying to do that.
I love that forward vision and that goal. Now, you probably love it if somebody just takes out a $10 million check, but
I mean, that would be great. If you know somebody that can do that, it sure would save me a lot of work.
Yeah,
hey,
but
Margaret, when you bring Michael Jackson back,
Yeah. So short of that, if folks wanted to learn more about your campaign or make any kind of donation, where do they go to do that?
They can visit our website at www.bcaky.org.
Okay, fantastic. Margaret, I have a great question for you. You've been there, I think you said 13 years, is that right? At this particular organization, what do you love most about the work?
I love that we make a difference every day. I love that we are an organization who's focused, like Kristen said, on what the child needs and what the learner needs and what the family needs. You can get caught up in a lot of bureaucracy when you're running a business and when you're providing services and things like that. But the mission to improve people's lives is what I love. And I think what we do well.
Fantastic. Now, Cassandra, you're big fans of these folks. What do you
absolutely.
Tell us about the impact they've made on your family?
Oh my gosh. For us personally, as I said before, for us to have a safe space to send Legend and to know that he is truly as loved and cared for as he is at home. And they enjoy his antics as much as we do. But I can tell you that for me, knowing that it started with the community program where he went little by little, then he got to go to full time, and now knowing that as this as BCA expands later on, sorry, that's my dog. As BCA expands later on, knowing that there'll always be a place for him in the community now, then that is absolutely so heartwarming and just so comforting to know that they don't just, okay, like at a traditional school, you might get this many years and then, okay, you're on your own. I really feel like that this is an extended family, and they are people. They will tell you, I have texted, I have messaged, I have sent pictures on the weekends, on holidays, and said, help me with this. I can tell you that because of BCA, Legend got potty trained. Because of BCA and the connections and resources and things that they have, he got a communication tablet. I can tell you that he runs into BCA most days if he hasn't been up since 1:30 in the morning. But hey, we got him out of shorts and into pants, and we didn't have to revert back to struggling to get him out of pants and into shorts. There are so many things that I can just reach out and say, I need some help with this. He's doing this or that. And I get that feedback and I get that guidance, and that is priceless, is what that is.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you ladies obviously sharing your insights on the journey, and Cassandra, you sharing your absolute passion for the work they do and your connection. I mean, you can just feel the love you have for the place.
My pleasure.
And I love being able to tell other folks about what they do. That's one of the things I love most about these nonprofit episodes. So, Kristen, tell us one more time, if folks want to learn about you, where do they go for your website?
Yeah, www.bcaky.org.
Fantastic. Now, I know you as the listener, you've got a lot of choices when it comes to podcasts. So we appreciate you tuning in to Seeing Ability today. We're still a little bit of a best kept secret. And I know a lot of you know other nonprofits that are doing great work. We'd love to have them on as guests. You might know parents who are raising kids with disabilities who would love to share their story. And we're really looking to have more adults who grew up as that person with a disability. Each month right now, we're doing 2 episodes. One is an individual or a family, and the other, like today, is a great nonprofit. So hit us up on our Facebook page. If you haven't yet, please go to our Facebook page. Just go to seeingability.com. It'll take you to the Facebook page and follow the page, like it. And obviously, when this episode comes out, like the episode, share it with your network, and introduce us to other people. The goals for this podcast are simple. 1, we want to provide education. I know there's been great things that we talked about today. 2, we all need a little bit of motivation. So hopefully the stories shared today make you feel inspired. And 3, that isolation is a big risk. So we want to form community, and we want our listeners to come back to Seeing Ability because it's just another layer of your village. So we appreciate you taking the time to tune in today. Thank you, ladies, for being here, and we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.